Hello, I'm Pastor Jeff. Thanks for joining me as we are reading the Gospel of Luke and then the Acts of the Apostles as part of our Lenten discipline this year at Lutheran Church of the Resurrection. Today, we find ourselves on the 21st day of our reading. It's Tuesday, March 9th, and we're in Luke 23. This is the chapter of Jesus before Pilate. It's the chapter of the crucifixion. And there are so many things that we could talk about as we read this together. But there's a couple things that I want to just kind of bring out, and you can think about them on your own as well. But Jesus is being shuffled back and forth between, the council first and in the chapter before, but then to Pilate, to Herod, to Pilate. And these powers of the world, Herod and Pilate, certainly represent earthly power. They seem to think that Jesus is a pawn in their game. As I reflect on the reality of the faith, so often the faith, even Christianity, is used as a pawn for the powerful, as a way to legitimize behavior that is not godly or good. And here we see that perhaps reflected as Herod and Pilate kind of treat Jesus in this way. It's also interesting to know that Pilate seemingly is treated kind of softly here. But we know Pilate was actually excused from his position for being harsh, for being a very mean-spirited person. And so I don't think we're meant to feel sorry for Pilate. Pilate, in fact, rolls over. He does what he knows isn't right because it's politically expedient. If indeed he finds no reason to condemn Jesus, he still does. And there perhaps too we see evil at work, where we look the other way. Even when we know what is good and right and true, we choose that which is not. And we do it by trying to pass the blame, to somehow, make sure that we wash our hands. We don't have it in this gospel, but that we somehow are not a part of the evil that truly we participate in. Well, as Jesus goes to the cross, Simon of Cyrene is compelled to help carry his cross. So here we have a very human Jesus. This is very different than John's gospel, where we're told Jesus carries his own cross the whole way. But here in Luke, we see the fully human Jesus struggling under the weight of what's been put upon him. And then, of course, at the crucifixion, we get only here in Luke the story of the conversation between those criminals who were crucified with him. Traditionally, they're called thieves or bandits. They weren't. In the Roman world, you were crucified if you were a runaway slave. You were crucified if you were an insurrectionist, if you had gone against the government. And so these are probably political folks as well, probably part of revolutionary activities. And we have this conversation, and one of them, of course, derides Jesus. The other seemingly calls upon Jesus simply to remember him. And I think there's something quite extraordinary here. Did you notice that so-called good criminal, he doesn't say he's sorry. He doesn't confess a long line of sins. He doesn't confess Jesus. He simply says, remember me. And just as happened with the father and the prodigal, Jesus meets him right where he is. And what does Jesus say? Today you'll be with me in paradise. Even in the midst of the cross, the goodness and the love of Christ comes shining forth. It's a hard chapter to read, and then, of course, the burial. But still in the midst of this dark, dark chapter, we see the love of God. God bless you.